Yeah, ghostwriting opened my eyes to that a lot because I was being pulled into genres that I wouldn't normally write. I wouldn't normally write a romance, but I've
Right.
written a lot of them as a ghostwriter because obviously that's what sells, and these mill houses they're making money off of them. But
Yep.
it's not just romance, but every subgenre of romance, but then also fantasy, science fiction. The subgenres of science fiction. You go on and on. All these genres have rules, and
Yep.
when the bigger, the more money that's involved, the more those rules mean something.
Yep.
So like companies that have found a formula that works, and not formula meaning that A happens, then B happens, then C happens, although that's part of it sometimes. It's that like if we do this, the book's going to sell. If we do this, it's going to sell half as much. If we do this, no one's going to read it.
Yep.
And those rules you can kind of buck when you're on your own. But the more money that's involved, and especially when you get into like the Millhouse situation where they do nothing but produce these money making books and get people to ghostwrite them under these pen names or whatever. Those rules are pretty strict, but then they also reflect something. They reflect something readers are responding to. So it's
Yep.
always been interesting to me, like even like ghostwriting fantasy, as a person that leans horror, learning what you can get away with and what you can't get away with. And like I ghost wrote a fantasy trilogy that does really well for a particular name. And I think in one book I used like one hell or one damn, and the most of the negative comments are about the cuss word being in there. And I
Yep.
don't even remember doing it. Like I
Yep.
remember like specifically avoiding all that stuff. So the fact that it slipped in, the fact that the author that paid for it didn't find it, that the editors didn't find it, like the fact that like readers are constantly finding it shows that like there's a mentality for these high fantasy readers, and so
Yep.
you can go dark in certain ways, but you can't say damn ever, you know.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
there's all these rules that go in, and then you kind of decide for yourself, okay, which of these am I going to follow? Which am I not going to deal with? I've had a lot of success as an extreme horror writer, and that I kind of came by that by accident. Like I didn't realize that was what I was doing until it started getting some attention. But even within that, that idea of like anything goes. There's certain types of scenes and certain types of stories I just don't write. And it could be looked at by readers of that category as like a lack of courage, that I'm not going to try it. But then also there's just whether you're talking about this extreme taboo that I won't touch, or you're talking about a certain type of epic fantasy that I'm not going to try to write. Some of it is like I just feel like I don't have anything to say about that. Like
Wow.
I could write it, but again, like I don't feel anything about that needs to be said.
Yep.
And I've written a lot of vampire stories, but it always comes from an idea of like, okay, what hasn't been done, and that particular trope, for whatever reason, like I write a lot more zombie stories than I do vampire stories, but for some reason that particular trope shows that aspect of my writing personality more than anything else. Like anytime I'm about to write a vampire story, it's always like I always have to come to some angle, some quirk, some gimmick that hasn't been done before. Like I've never seen this before. Okay, now I can write a vampire story kind of thing. But I
Isn't that
think
crippling?
do what?
Isn't that crippling sometimes?
It can be, although like I think the fact that I write, I don't know, it's great for my marketing career and everything, but the fact that I write broadly in a lot of genres, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. It's not like I'm sitting around waiting for a vampire story to come to me. It's always just kind of like, oh, I got something, so I may go ahead and write this. But
Ah, good.
um, it's just kind of that idea that like you're talking about the type of characters you want to write, the type of stories you want to write. It's just if I don't have anything to say about it, or I don't have anything to say that hasn't already been said, then I don't feel strongly about having my say in it.